After countless comic book tie-ins, special issues, and miniseries, Marvel Comics' Gang War storyline is finally set to end in the pages of Amazing Spider-Man 44. Last issue saw a surprising revelation as Janice's father Tombstone seemingly clipped her wings and pivoted the gang war in a much different direction. My name is Araco Braddock, and today, let's go ahead and preview the pages of Amazing Spider Man issue 44 to see how the gang war wraps up. But before we get deeper into the video, I want to encourage you to consider subscribing to the channel and hitting the like button over on this video. Gang war conclusion. Madame Masque makes the power move she's been waiting her entire life. This is not going to go the way that you think it will. So Amazing Spider-Man issue 44 is still written by Zeb Wells, featuring artwork from John Romita Jr. We have inks from Scott Hanna, colors from Marcio Menyz, and letters from VC's Joe Caramagna. In addition, the cover for the series is also illustrated over from John Romita Jr., Scott Hanna, and Marcio Menyz. Over the gang war, it's been so fascinating to really watch Madame Masque's profile really be bolstered, and seeing her on the cover of this super climactic issue closing out the gang war is just an epic way to showcase Madame Masque's final battle within this storyline here. I also want to extend a quick thank you to Adventures in Poor Taste and preview some of the fascinating artwork opening the pages of Amazing Spider-Man 44. So in this issue, we really get to pick up on the aftermath of the large-scale battle, making up one of the most epic fights within Amazing Spider-Man's Gang War storyline, really seeing the way that both Zeb Wells and John Romita Jr. are able to juggle their massive supporting cast while pitting Spider-Man in the middle of battling these giant foes is so interesting. One of my favorite aspects about the latest issue of Marvel Comics' Amazing Spider-Man series is how we got to see Tombstone try and stop his daughter over in the last installment. The way that Tombstone really confidently addresses some of the other characters in this series and prepares to try and stop the gang war before any more blood is spilled is incredibly awe-inspiring. I also really like the way that this issue shifts some of the dynamics between Tombstone and Spider-Man. I really thought that moving forward, every sequence and scenario that we would see Zeb Wells and Tombstone be portrayed in with Spider-Man would really go for a more jovial and comedic sensibility. But I think this issue really nicely sets up some more animosity between Tombstone and Spider-Man that'll hopefully be addressed in a future issue of the core comic book. Another one of my favorite aspects about Amazing Spider-Man 44 was how this series really detailed how Madame Masque was able to get some of her powers and rise up to prominence so quickly throughout some of those disparate gang war comic book stories. I also really liked the plot device of the sigils and how it affected some of the characters across the series, like Count Nefaria. Also, the way that Shotgun was able to be implemented back within the scope of the narrative within this issue was so enthralling here. I really like how Shotgun is now like on a secret mission within the scope of the Marvel Universe and has a whole new storyline and plot thread to seemingly go off of now. Another aspect that I think the Amazing Spider-Man 44 served really well was Spider-Man's really massive supporting cast. Really getting to see characters like Spider-Boy and Jackpot join the fray alongside Peter Parker was really thrilling over in this chapter. I also really enjoyed some of the opportunity to get some more characterization for Mary Jane as Jackpot. The way that she was able to play off of that Spider-Boy character was so endearing and added a really nice additional element of characterization across Spider-Man's gang war narrative. It's virtually impossible to talk about Marvel Comics' Gang War storyline in any sort of depth without talking about the characters of Randy Robertson and Janice Lincoln. Janice Lincoln is mysteriously absent from this issue, and I really hope that Zeb Wells and Tombstone have something in mind for her reappearance in a future storyline. But I do think that Janice's presence is really felt across this issue of Spider-Man with numerous references to her whereabouts. Also, I think that some of the material with Randy and the last couple pages of The Amazing Spider-Man was so beautiful and just did a great job punctuating Peter Parker's main motivation for taking battle amidst some of the other characters in the Gang War storyline. Also, the way that Zeb Wells was able to implement some of these plot threads from Luke Cage, as well as some of the politics within the city of New York within this story, also opened up a really nice element of Amazing Spider Man that makes this series feel so deep and incredible as well. If I could just take a step back for a moment, I want to particularly highlight the way that Zeb Wells has managed the supporting cast across the Gang War storyline. Really watching the rise of Madame Masque was so fascinating, but as was watching some of Wilson Fisk's reaction to his son the Rose being featured in the story. Plus, getting the chance to watch some of these amazing Spider Man supporting cast members like Spider Woman, who's also featured in this issue, added so much interesting depth to this storyline. I also think there was just so much good characterization between Tombstone and some of the rest of the players in this Amazing Spider Man series. From the very beginning of Zeb Wells' Amazing Spider Man comic, it felt like there was some huge, massive storyline for Tombstone and Spider Man to embark on. And in that sense, I really think Gang War lived up to some of its premise and the position that Zeb Wells decided to slot this story into. So at the end of the day, I think Marvel Comics' Amazing Spider-Man issue 44 is just another phenomenal main chapter of the series. The way that Zeb Wells and John Romita Jr. have managed this awesome supporting cast of characters in the middle of an epic storyline, really fleshing out some of the gang war inspired activities across New York City, has been so thrilling. I really think that Wells had a fascinating premise to this issue that was kind of started over an Amazing Spider-Man 31, and just taking such a really large chunk of Amazing Spider-Man to tell this story actually paid off in the long form and really got some of our supporting cast members to different positions across the narrative. I think if you look at just how much Janice Lincoln has grown as a character, the gang war was definitely worth it for something. But I want to know from you, what were some of your thoughts over on the Amazing Spider-Man and this gang war storyline? Are you still enjoying the main Marvel Comics series? And did you also like watching some of these players move from issue to issue? Moving forward here, I am incredibly excited to see one of my favorite Marvel Comics artists, Carmen Carnero, join Zeb Wells for the 45th issue of the series, detailing what's next for Spider-Man after this really momentous storyline. Thank you so much for coming to check out our video review over on Amazing Spider-Man issue 44, and we'll be back to see wherever the Amazing Spider-Man is headed in the very next storyline. Thanks so much, and I'll see you soon. Bye.